Tyrion Lannister is one of the most recognizable characters in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. In the show, he's clever and funny. He does great as Hand of the King earlier in the series by defending the city against Stannis, arranging political marriages, and trying to make allies. But when he becomes Hand of the Queen to Daenerys, he starts to flop a little. Luckily for us, Tyrion hasn't even met Dany in the books yet, so we can certainly see a different path for him. When it comes to A Dance with Dragons, it is often said that Tyrion has the most boring point of view in the book. And today, I'm going to defend Tyrion against his washed up allegations. Everyone's out there saying that, oh, he was on a boat the whole time. But so was Quentin Martell, and he is definitely a more boring point of view than Tyrion is. This is the first of many in a series that I'm calling Trial by Content, where I plan to defend every point of view character against the cruelty and negativity of you, the internet, and all the hatred that you have in your hearts. Which is what you definitely have if you think Tyrion has a weak point of view in Dance. We get to see his journey in exile, where he ends up in the middle of a Blackfire plot, gets sold into slavery, and joins the Second Sons as a mercenary. He has a grand total of 12 chapters in this book, so we get to see quite a lot of him. In Tyrion's first chapter, we see his journey from the Seven Kingdoms to Pentos, after murdering his father and his lover. Before Jaime had freed him in a storm of swords, he told him the truth about his first wife Tisha, that she wasn't really a whore, and she actually was just a crafter's daughter that they met along the road. His whole life, Tyrion thought she was a whore that Jaime bought for him, so that he could become a man. And to be honest, I love Jaime and all, but he should have just taken that to the grave. Like, bro, you just broke Tyrion. Before he thought he was escaping death. Like, I don't know if it was the best time for all that. A quick recap of this story. Tyrion and Jaime were traveling from Lannisport to Casterly Rock, and they saw a woman named Tisha being chased by some outlaws. Jaime chased down the men while Tyrion took care of Tisha. He took her to a nearby inn and fed her. They drank wine and talked, and soon they were making love. He took her maidenhead, and they found a drunken septon to marry them. Everything was perfect for about 2 weeks, until Tywin found out that Tyrion wed a common woman. He said that she wed him for his gold, and that made her no different from a whore in his eyes. So to teach him a lesson, he had all of his guards take turns on her and made Tyrion watch, and then made him go last and pay her for her service, because a Lannister always pays his debts. That was a diabolical move by Tywin Lannister, and it really takes Tyrion to a dark place in this book. He embraces being the monster that they all think he is. Let it be known that Tyrion has the very first chapter right after the prologue in A Dance with Dragons. Just throwing that out there. It starts with him arriving in Pentos after drinking himself in a box across the narrow sea. He drinks to keep the dreams away, or rather, the demons. Tyrion is dropped off inside Illyrio's manse, and he finally gets to take a shower and eat after having to shit himself throughout the entire narrow sea. His father's last words still haunted him. Wherever whores go. That was his answer when Tyrion asked where Tisha went. Most people he asked just told him that they're at the brothels. He tells Illyrio that he wants to go to Dorne to crown Myrcella and pit Cersei's children against one another, and according to Dornish custom, an elder daughter would come before a son. But Illyrio is like, bro, what if I told you that there's someone even better than that? What if they supported Daenerys Targaryen instead? In Tyrion 2, they're heading towards the Rhoyne to meet up with some of Illyrio's companions that will take him the rest of the way to Volantis. This is more of a recap chapter, having Illyrio get Tyrion up to speed on all that Dany has been up to. He wonders if his father's looking up at him from hell while he restores the Mad King's daughter to the Iron Throne. Illyrio tells him that the Golden Company is on their way to Volantis to meet Dany. They broke their contract with Myr, and they were known for never breaking a contract. To which Illyrio says, some contracts are written in ink, and some are written in blood. We get a nice little history lesson here on how during the Blackfire Rebellion, Bittersteel and all the exiled lords and knights went to Essos and joined different sellsword companies. Bittersteel founded the Golden Company to bring all the Blackfire supporters together in hopes of one day returning to Westeros. In one of Jon Connington's chapters later in the book, he meets the Golden Company and he sees exiled Westerosi nobility. He counted 2 Strongs, 3 Peaks, and a pair of Coles. That right there is my nightmare blunt rotation. Tyrion questions how it's possible that the Golden Company will back a Targaryen after generations of fighting against them, to which Illyrio says, black or red, a dragon is still a dragon. When Meleys the Monstrous was slain by Sir Barristan Selmy, it was the end of the male line of House Blackfire. He smiled when he said that. Illyrio implies that the Blackfires still live through the female line. He then goes on to tell Tyrion about his second wife Sarah, that he found in a Lysine pillow house. He rescued her and married her. She had pale gold hair striped with silver, with blue eyes. He was the first cousin to the Prince of Pentos, and since he married a whore, the palace gates were shut to him. This Sarah could have potentially been one of the last living Blackfires. But this is all to say that Daenerys will finally take these exiled lords home. They finally meet up with their companions. There's a healer named Halden and a knight named Duck, who are being led by a sellsword and his son, Griff and young Griff, along with a septa named Lemore, and they're all traveling on a ship called the Shy Maid. It doesn't take long for Tyrion to figure out what's going on here. This Griff is actually Jon Connington, former hand to the Mad King, and young Griff is supposed to be Aegon Targaryen, son of Prince Rhaegar. Jon Con was in love with Prince Rhaegar. He said Elia was never worthy of him. He says things like, I rose too high, loved too hard, dared too much. I tried to grasp a star, overreached, and fell. He failed the father, but he will not fail the son. Thanks to Tyrion meeting this group, we also get some Jon Connington point of view chapters later on throughout the book. And it's a damn shame that this entire plotline was cut from the show. Jon Con was Hand of the King during Robert's Rebellion. He had a chance to end it all himself, actually. Robert Baratheon was injured and he was in a town called the Stony Sept. He was searching day and night for Robert. He knew that he was alone and the people of the town were silently protecting him. They moved him from house to house and they even sent out ravens for him. He took hostages, he did everything that he could, but he couldn't get a single drop of information on him. Before he can find Robert, Ned Stark and Hoster Tully arrive and wash them. Jon Con retreated back to King's Landing, and the Mad King exiled him for his failure. And as for young Griff, why else would a sellsword's son across the narrow sea need a knight as a master at arms, a septa to instruct him in the ways of the Seven, and a maester to teach him languages and histories? Varys allegedly rescued Rhaegar's son Aegon by swapping him with some peasant kid that he traded for a jug of Arbor gold. There's not really a sigil for peasants, so I'm using House Frey's sigil to take up that honor, cause fuck the Freys. I'm guessing the show cut the storyline to avoid confusion by there being two Aegon Targaryens at the same time. One is the Mummer's dragon, a black dragon pretending to be a red, and the other is the true Aegon, son of Rhaegar, only he doesn't know it and he goes by a different name. Their game plan is simple. Meet up with Daenerys and marry her. They'll have the Golden Company plus all of Dany's forces, and Aegon thinks he can even ride a dragon. Tyrion sees all of this and says that it makes for a good story, her perfect prince, but he sees right through these plots. He starts to fuck with their plans by playing Syvas with the prince. It's like the Westerosi version of chess. Tyrion tells Aegon that his plan sounds cool and all, but what if she doesn't want to marry him? He never even stopped to consider that she could say no, but all he had to say was, she must. And that's not a word that queens love to hear. Dany has conquered cities, has dragons, and an army of Unsullied at her back. He just has a sellsword company. He's practically showing up as a beggar. But what if he went to Westeros and started the war instead? He would be a rebel. He'd be bold, reckless, and a true Targaryen prince. And then she would have no choice but to marry him. Right? Tyrion doesn't actually think this is a good idea. He just does it to mess with Aegon's head. But he actually ends up doing it. It's more likely that it'll cause a war as opposed to a marriage pact. A second dance of the dragons, with both of them fighting for the throne. While their group is sailing through the Sorrows on their way to Volantis, they get attacked by stone men. Tyrion saves young Griff, and Griff saves Tyrion. Only, Jon Con ends up getting Gracio in the book, instead of Jorah. He keeps it a secret and doesn't tell anyone. He wants to put Aegon on the Iron Throne for Rhaegar. After this encounter, they arrive at Volantis, where Tyrion and Halden go get information about Daenerys, and any word regarding the war. While he's there, he sees a lot of red priests preaching about Daenerys, about how she's the prophesied savior, and that Volantis will burn if they take up arms against her. This makes him think about Griff and the prince. They were thinking about contacting the red priests to push Aegon, but they prophesized one great hero, not two. He doesn't think it would go well for them. After a long day of travel, Tyrion breaks off from the group to go to a brothel in hopes of finding Tisha, and that's when Jorah comes in and kidnaps him. At first, Tyrion thinks he's being taken to Cersei, but when he finds out that the queen that he intends to take him to is Daenerys, he just starts cracking up. They meet with the widow of the waterfront in Volantis in hopes of finding a way to Meereen. Due to the war, all of the ships are going the opposite way, so booking passage seems impossible. While they're discussing, a dwarf named Penny tries to stab Tyrion. It turns out that she was one of the dwarves that performed for Joffrey's wedding. She was riding the dog, and her brother was riding the pig. It turns out that since Cersei is offering a lordship to whoever brings her Tyrion's head, they mistook Penny's brother Oppo for Tyrion and killed him. Penny blames Tyrion for his death at first, but later begins to understand that it wasn't truly his fault, and even starts to develop feelings for him. They kiss a few times, but Tyrion ultimately rejects her. He thinks she could probably fix him, but he's done with women. He only wants to find Tisha. They end up finding a ship that is supposed to end up in Marine somehow. Tyrion decides to bring Penny and her animals on the journey to Marine. Aside from Jorah, there's also a red priest named Makoro on the ship. Makoro sees a vision in the flames and says he sees dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark, and you, a small man with a big shadow, snarling in the midst of it all. This vision is about Tyrion fucking with Griff's plans and them being the false dragons, aka the Blackfires. The reason that the boat ends up in Marine is because it gets caught in a storm. Makoro ended up swimming away to Victarion Greyjoy somehow, and Tyrion, Penny, and Jorah were captured by slavers. Tyrion and Penny are sold as a pair of jousting dwarves on the slave block. An enormous rotting man named Yezin Zoquagas ended up buying them. Tyrion also said Jorah was their dancing bear and convinced them to buy him too. Yezin was a man that liked to collect grotesqueries. He had a boy with goat legs, a two-headed girl, and a bearded woman. As far as slave masters go, he was one of the more gentle ones. He had agreed with the peace Dany was trying to form with Yunkai. Collecting freaks aside, at least he seems like a chill guy. Tyrion takes advantage to escape with Jorah and Penny to the Second Sons, where he convinces Brown Ben Plum to take them in and promised him lands and titles, and a whole lot of gold when they get back to Westeros. He's not the only Plum we've seen in the story so far. During the Second Blackfire Rebellion, Bloodraven had disguised himself as Maynard Plum. It is said that the Plums have a drop of the dragon's blood through Viserys Plum, and in one of Dany's chapters, her dragons seem to like Brown Ben. Tyrion's point of view in Dance ends with him entering his name in the Book of the Second Sons, joining the likes of Aegor Rivers, Aerion Brightflame, and Roderick Stark. Similarly to Jaime writing his name in the White Book of the Kingsguard, the world already views them as the Kingslayer brothers, may as well give them some more parallels. But that's not technically where his story ends. We have a sample chapter from the Winds of Winter where the dragons are loose in Marine. Victarion and the Ironborn arrived to raid the Yunkai outside of the city gates, and the Unsullied were on them. Tyrion convinces Brown Ben Plum to turn his cloak and fight for Daenerys instead. They clearly don't stand a chance. This is Tyrion's second chapter from the Winds of Winter, so we don't get to see what he does in his first chapter. With all of this being said, to those of you who think Tyrion has a weak point of view in Dance, may I refer you to Quentin Martell? Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the Dornish, but I'm strictly speaking about Arianne and Sorella Sand when I say that. I get the main argument against him. He's on a boat for half the book, I understand that, but we're still getting great chapters, and his character still continues to progress. I'm sure he's gonna have a completely different Hand of the Queen run when he finally meets up with Daenerys. I believe he'll be a much more aggressive hand compared to show Tyrion. We know that Tyrion is one of George R.R. Martin's favorite point of views to write, and we know he survives in the show, so I can't wait to see what's in store for him in Winds. Thanks for watching. Let me know who you want me to defend next in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.